Welcome, welcome, welcome. Uh, this is the turntable with Ari Styles, D Money, and Shiki. I did not forget this week on Active FM, where radio has never been better.
Yes, I'm Aristas. This is the turntable where we keep you learned and get you turned.
And I'm D Money, and we be bringing you the facts and playing you the tracks. So today we got another exciting show for you. Ari's even dressed up in character.
Yeah.
So, Chiki, give us the breakdown.
This is 50 versus Ja, 50 Cent versus Ja Rule.
Curtis Jackson versus
Jeffrey Atkins. Oh, okay. I'm not gonna. I'm trying not to be. I'm gonna.
Before we start this, let me preference this by saying, number one, I am a huge 50 Cent fan. Grew up on his stuff. But for the sake of the show, because the man to my right being Ari Styles is going to be extremely biased, I am going to look at this from an objective view. I would just like to preference it before we get into it.
And I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be unbiasedly biased.
You're just going to be biased. Unbiasedly biased means you're not biased. It's a
No,
contradiction.
Yeah.
Anyway, kick it off with your biasness.
Yeah. So it's 50 Cent versus Ja Rule, right? So the beef. So we're doing beef, right? So it's 50 versus Ja Rule. So it started in '99, right? Where Ja Rule was robbed at gunpoint from with this chain, right?
Mhm.
And then what happened? Because it was according to 50 Cent, it was one of his affiliates, one of his friends, right? And then later after that, Ja Rule released in '99. He released his album Vini Vidi Vici, right? And he was shooting a video call for his song for his single Murder for Life. And when 50 approached him, he was basically frosty towards 50. So like
Standoffish.
Yeah, standoffish.
Didn't that happen in the club because Ja Rule sent his men Brown and not Shiki, for those who know. They sent him to get the chain back, and then
That happened.
No, that happened.
That-
It is in that. It is
in the whole
Yeah. So
beginning of the
basically, there's different. Again, like everyone we've discussed, is different. Everyone has a different opinion or story on how it started. So that one that Ja Rule that 50 bases it on saying that Ja Rule was robbed by someone that he associated with, and because he was cool with him, he had an issue with it.
Yeah.
The chain was gotten back by other people.
Yeah.
But that situation is a little bit deeper in that this wasn't necessarily a rap beef or a battle per se. This was actually a little bit deeper. There was personal problems involved. There were people behind the people that had issues. Hence, obviously, 50 Cent ended up getting shot many times and things like that. So it's a little bit deeper than that. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, so we're going in chronological order. Okay?
I apologize.
Right. So then, because of that, in '99, 50 Cent released a diss track towards Ja Rule. And at that time, in '99 as well, to mention, 50 was signed to Columbia Records, right? So he was also busy preparing his album
Power of the Dollar.
Power of the Dollar. But he was basically upcoming. Charles' album was already.
He might have been at that point in time an album or two in, and he was on top of the world. Like the biggest in the game at that point in time would have been Ja Rule, DMX, and Jay-Z. There were
in
three.
1999.
from 99 to like 2004.
Yeah, there were the three juggernauts of hip hop
Yeah.
at that point in time. The biggest thing you could find. They were all selling millions and millions of records. Ja had hit after hit after hit. The albums were going multi-platinum. He was on remixes. He was featured with J-Lo. Other people say he was out there. Completely, arguably the biggest at that point in time.
Yeah.
Between him and DMX.
Yeah, so basically 99, because Ja Rule's album was, it was selling. What's it called?
Vidi Vidi Vici.
It's Veni Vidi Vici, right?
Right.
Yeah. So then, 50 came up with a track, "Lives on the Line." So one of Ja Rule's friends,
Black
called Black Child, spoke to 50 and said, "50, don't let us out," because initially what he was doing he was first he started performing it, shooting out of the verses to certain guys, and people started hearing it, and Black Child told him, say, please don't mess with my food, because Black Child was also a friend of 50.
They're from the same neighborhood.
Same neighborhood, yeah. So he went to 50 and said, please 50, don't release it. But what 50 did, he sent it out. Then on Lives on the Line, the Lives on the Line, that what we know, there was one that he did which was way up, what was way raw and way disrespectful, and his label Columbia Records
Didn't want to
advised
release
him-
it.
didn't want to release it, so he had to change the verses.
For those of you that have heard the song or are aware of the song, it's not direct shot, so you might not be sure it is actually talking to who he's talking to. But if you hear the hook on the thing, it seems scream murder, I don't believe you. That's because the label was
yeah.
Murder Inc., where Ja Rule came from, one of
Yeah.
the biggest at the
And
time.
then the original version was where he mentions Ja Rule, he mentions Jay-Z, he mentions a whole lot of.
Well,
lot of it.
the Jay-Z line and the Nas line is still within the song.
Yeah. No, but there he mentions on the original he mentions it, right? Then in 2000, 50 promoter what's it called, booked Ja Rule and 50 at the same at the same venue, the same club.
In
And
Atlanta, I think it was in.
Yeah, in Atlanta nightclub. And then 50's manager at the time, which was
Black and Shares.
No, yeah, Shares was Slim, right? He will.
So for the confusion, when you say Slum was one of his names, right?
Yeah.
On many, when he says,
Yeah, I'm coming. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna come to
when
it.
the Slum, a lot of people thought he was talking about Eminem because of
No.
the Slum Shady
Yeah.
reference. He's actually
No.
referring to his
Ish.
manager, Slum.
Yeah, so I'll explain to you that.
Or his ex-manager.
Yeah, ex-manager, right? So then 50 goes in. Shares Williams says no, go speak to him. So 50 goes in and went to Ja Rule and went to go speak to him. And at that time, Ja Rule had a baseball bat in his hand, right? Because he was at that time, Ja Rule used to go perform with props, and so he had a baseball bat.
It was an era where everybody
Yeah.
performed with props, so that was normal.
Yeah. So he had a baseball bat. So as he was talking, because the topic started getting heated up, Ja Rule was swinging the bat. So 50 in his mind, he thought, okay, in order for me, before this guy hits me with his bat, I'm just gonna take a shot, and he punches 50. He punches Ja Rule, and then from there, Ja Rule and his clan attacks 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Attacks 50. Both chains, his chain and Ja Rule's chain, breaks off the neck. 50 grabs it, runs away. Right?
All right.
Cops came to stop the 50 basically went home. He actually went to a radio station and went to go say, yeah, I got Ja Rule's chain. So do you know at the time if someone takes your chain, it's very disrespectful.
Not necessarily disrespectful, listen, anybody can get robbed at any point
Yeah.
in time. It's just that because of the environment or the culture of hip hop at that point in time, not necessarily the culture, the way in which it was structured, it was very braggadocious, bravado, tough guy, aggressive type art form at that point in time, where you had to be of a certain ilk to be a successful MC or to be a successful rapper in the eyes of the public. So what you getting robbed or something of that sort happening to you, you were looked at as you weren't that type of person or was not tough as you portray yourself to be. So you getting robbed or your chain taken was a sign of disrespect or looked at like you weren't what you were portraying yourself to be. Hence it was such a big deal, and later that chain gets referenced later on in diss tracks and so forth.
Yeah. Then again in 2000 what's it called? The Ja Rule is in a studio called Hit Factory, right? They buzz in Hit Factory. Pras from the
Fugees.
comes into the studio, tells Ja 50 is upstairs. Now, as you were saying, that time it was about being hard, being braggadocious, being
Tough, somewhat
Tough.
the image. Whether you
With the
were or
image.
you weren't at that point in time, there was an image portrayed about you being like that. So with Pras coming in there, it was basically there to show that they really were like that and approach it.
Yeah, so that's when Ja Rule had to do his thing, and so then altercation happened, and by mistake one of the guys light switch and light switch went off, right? So as 50 was trying to pull out his weapon, his gun, one of Charles' members took out a knife. What you call stabbed 50.
Are you even saying that so biasly?
No,
They stabbed 50.
Yeah, no.
They got him.
Yeah,
Like, it was a fight that broke out.
So the fight broke out. 50 got stabbed. All right. 50 ran down. He went opposite across the studio. This is where it comes also important. That's how Benzino gets into the mix.
Arranged for him to be taken to the hospital.
Arranged-
Just to correct you on
Not
this
not
point.
arranged to hospital. 50 arranged to take him to his grandmother's place. Because remember, 50 was taking his grandmother's place.
I am not promoting violence in any way, shape, or form, nor are we glorifying it.
Yeah.
But just to correct your point, I've heard Tony Yayo speak on this in Drink Champs and as well as Vlad TV. He said the weapon was in the next room. It was him and 50 in the studio. These guys approached, and there was an altercation where 50 ended up getting stabbed. He has said this in many interviews that the weapon was actually in the next room or the next studio, and they were unable to get to it. Had they been able to get to it, that situation would have turned out differently, and you might have had people that have lost their lives as well as other people that might have been doing life in prison.
Okay.
So you actually look at it as an advantage that that weapon was in the next room, not that he couldn't get to it based on the fact that he didn't have it with him.
Whoa.
Just correcting it, 50, because
I'm saying
they've spoke. Yeah, you said he
yeah.
had it on him and he couldn't get to it.
That's
If,
what,
if you hear the actual story, he didn't have it with him. It was in the next room and they weren't able to get to
No,
it.
I'm speaking this part where I'm speaking about where they said 50 was pulling out the gun.
No, he didn't have
Right.
it on him.
That
He's
was-
even spoken on it.
Yeah, no, that was you speaking on Tony on 50 side.
Yeah.
That part when I'm speaking about is from Charles.
Oh, they thought he had a weapon
They-
on him
yeah,
because they
Charles-
heard someone
yeah,
scream,
Charles
say,
said-
"Get the
Yeah,
gun."
yeah.
That's why they stabbed him. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happened, and then someone laid. Then there was a protection order laid against Irv Gordy and but
Charo.
Charo. So that will be important when I come to the 2002, right? When right. So that happens. Then there's then 50 continues with the dust track. Then he makes a song called Kerukuran.
Yeah, Karakoran wasn't
Was-
a distract towards
It,
Charo.
it wasn't the dust track towards Charu, but people it got misunderstood. All right.
It was misunderstood in the sense of Ghetto Quran, he was speaking about his experiences, his environment, him growing up, and he was mentioning people's names that were looked at as were actively involved in crime. So he was looked at as he was snitching and he was talking about things that weren't supposed to have become public knowledge. But he's later clarified that the people that he spoke about and the names that he mentioned were people that were either dead or already doing life in prison. So him speaking about the activities and the activities within crime would not have affected them negatively. Would not have affected them negatively because they were already either passed on, or they were in prison, or they were alleged snitches at that point in time. So he was able to then vocalize and speak about the situation that he was going through, and he was basically talking about his background and his connection to the underworld, or to the street, or to the environment that he came from.
Yes, correct. And then in May,
By the way, it's a great record. Definitely check that out.
Kerukuran, yeah. In May 2000, that's when 50 walks out of his grandmother's house and gets shot 9 times, right? And then at that time, 50 got blackballed after that incident. They got dropped off Columbia. No studio wanted him to record, so he started recording. After recovering, he started recording at he had one studio where they allowed him to do his recording, right? Even though getting shot, he still went back and he still started dusting dust track called FU. Then we started doing mixtapes.
Yeah,
When Cash was back.
But then you got to look at the hypocrisy within the music industry and the business world and things like that. They were signing artists that created an image or had an image or come from a background of being tough gangsters and so forth and living the life that they're rapping and whatever the case may be. But when they had someone that was actually going through those type of situations that they were rapping about and bringing on artists to say they were doing those things, they actually dropped him and didn't want to work with him thereafter when he was actually going through those problems.
Yes.
So you want someone that's portraying a certain image and living a certain lifestyle, but when that lifestyle then affects it, you turn your back on the actual artist.
Yeah. So and that was basically 2000, right? Then 2001, 2002. That's when Ja. Between 2000 and 2002, that's when Ja was really now hitting it with this album 336. What's the other one? Pain is Love, where you got it, where you got
Just Rule
hit singles.
336, Pain is Love.
Root,
Yeah.
Pain is Love. Yeah, those albums, and he was featured with, as you said, J Lo,
Ashanti.
Ashanti.
Murder Inc.
Ashanti was Murder
big.
Inc.
Ashanti was Murder
Yeah.
Inc. That's when Murder Inc. was
DMX, Jay-Z, a whole lot of
blowing it,
people. Yeah.
was blowing it, right? While in the meantime, while 50 was recovering, Ja was blowing. Ja was doing brilliant records, brilliant. That two albums, Pain is Love and the 336. I won't lie, I actually like those both of those albums. I like all, like up until, was it called The Last Temptation?
I don't know. I like his music.
Or
I
Blood
can't
in
tell
My-
you
Or Blood in My Eyes.
which album is which and
Oh,
which song
yeah.
come from which. I just like the
You know
music.
the album, yeah, but he had a song that was Put It On Me. It's big, but I think it's his singles are way big.
I don't think we have to delve into the actual records because many of our listeners, regardless of your age, will be familiar with Ja Rule records. We like to paint the image that he's fallen off and people don't care about him anymore, but his music still plays
It's
a lot till today. Yep.
Yeah. So that was then in 2000 in 2002, 50 started working on and started doing the mixtapes. The Guess Who's Back. What else?
He had a slew
Power
of
of a-
mixtapes.
yeah.
The Power of a Dollar was actually an EP. So what he was recording on Columbia Records was the album called The Power of a Dollar.
Yeah.
When he had gotten dropped and released from the label and so forth, a Power of a Dollar EP came out. That's where you hear songs like the songs that were supposed to be on the album doesn't ended up on the actual EP. It's where you get songs like How to Rob and those
Yeah.
type of records that came out on the Power of the Dollar EP. So there are songs that prior to Get Rich or Die Trying come out that you know of 50 Cent from. That's what some of them came out on the Power of the Dollar EP.
Yeah. So then he started doing mixtape, but he still started dissing. He still
Oh,
dissed.
yeah.
And then he was still dissing Ja. It was still, it's like you said with the KRS, unknown artist.
I was gonna get into
Here's
that,
another
yeah.
example with 50 doing it to Ja. Then in 2002, I think one of 50's attorneys meets up with Paul Rosenberg, and Paul Rosenberg gives the Guess Who's Back mixtape to Slim Shady, Eminem, and Dr. Dre. So Eminem said, okay, let us take Eminem to Dre, signs him to Shady Aftermath. After that, 50 Dre and Eminem advises 50, okay, to not that was all in 2002, right? Do not that's what focus on. Let's focus on your album. Focus on everything. Leave the issue with Ja alone. He leaves it aside for a while until remember I spoke about a protection order. Until Ja Rule and Irv Gotti goes onto radio and and then pulls out the protection order and says, see, 50 claims to be a tough guy, but he filed a protection order. But the protection order wasn't filed by 50.
The engineer in the studio who had also got injured within that altercation ended up filing the protection order, but
Yeah.
because 50 was involved in the altercation, he got brought up in it. If you listen to Eminem's Toy Soldiers, he basically describes the situation.
Yeah.
He says we told 50 to leave it alone until Ja Rule went and spoke about the protection order and the stabbing and things, and then we said 50 smashed him, and let him have it.
Yeah. And then between 2002 to 2003, that's when now 50 started. And then 50 after giving him the green light to start retaliating against Ja Rule, then Wangster came out.
Now, Wangster was on a mixtape.
Wangster
Yeah.
So was a record on a
2002.
mixtape of 50 Cent, which ended up being a bonus track on Get Rich or Die Trying for those of us who's old enough to have had Get Rich or Die Trying.
and
I'd
it's
like
on
to
the
add it was the first album that I actually ever bought. There was a bonus track on there. So that
And
was
it-
actually a mixtape record that became like a single.
it became
a
like
street
a
single, yeah.
It's just it was a street single. That's what basically was his first hit single. it peaked at on the Billboard charts at I think 13 on the Billboard chart.
Yeah, number
for
13.
for a song that's initially on a mixtape. It was also on the 8 Mile soundtrack, but anyway, I'm not gonna go too far in there. It's 50 versus Ja. Yeah, so then it continues 50s song in the club hits. I've got it on a radio station. He says this. He says, okay, they got word that this of the song in the club. They said he told Charu, let us hear it. Then he heard the beat, the starting beat, and he said, yeah, Dre got a dope beat. Then he says, okay, says, let's see if his lyrics matches the beat. And when they heard it, he announces to everybody in Murder Inc., I think we have a problem, right? Then Charu does Charu now, because of he started dissing everybody. Charu mentioned, I forgot to mention this. Charu, when M and Dre signed 50, Charu speaks to M and Dre and told him, if you please, you better make sure that 50 doesn't dust me on any track, right? Which they agreed. But then with the protection order, they initiated it. Charu comes up with a track called Loose Change, right? And guess who shot ya? Then that's when, because then he included Charu included
Charu went for everybody.
He went for Busta Rhymes. He went for
Dre. He went for
Eminem. And for me personally, I think that was his downfall. By putting in people that wasn't actually in their beef.
Well, they went for, besides for the Dre and Eminem affiliation, they went at people. 50 was on Chris Lighty's management company, and they had attacked people that were on Violator management. So hence how Busta Rhymes and things get involved. I'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah. So Charu releases Loose Change. That's when 50 on the album you have when he puts in Backdown. Then because now M is involved, Busta's involved, Dre is involved, Green Lantern, which is Eminem's Shady
DJ
Aftermath
mixtape, DJ as well as DJ. Yes.
So then they release a mixtape, and a 24-track mixtape. Alright? And at the same time, Eminem was battling Benzino, so that all gets
it was a
included.
mixtape filled with diss tracks,
Yeah.
either going at Ja Rule and Murder Inc. or Benzino.
Or
Anyone they
Benzino.
had problems with at that point in time that came from the Shady
put it on.
Aftermath camp was on that mixtape.
So then it became
And to put it in perspective, Busta at this point in time was signed to Aftermath.
Yeah. So then it became not a 50 and Ja beef, it became a Shady Aftermath Murder Inc. beef.
Mm-hmm.
So was that when the track Hail Mary, was that one of the tracks that
It was
Yes.
probably on that
Released.
same
It's
mixtape.
on that Invasion
on the
mixtape.
mixtape?
On that
So that's
Invasion
when
mixtape.
that's Busta M.
And then you had
50.
D12 going at everybody. They was,
And then you have on Cradle to the Grave, the Cradle to the Grave soundtrack. You got a song called Go to Sleep, where it's Eminem, and then we have Mr. DMX also going at because Ja at that point in time, because of his rise, of his status because of his success in 2001 and 2002, between 2000 and 2002, because of his success, he felt like he was now untouchable.
Nah, the DMX situation with him is a little bit different. If you hear the vocal tones and in Ja Rule's voice, there is similarities with DMX, and DMX had come out first and was stylistic wise they were different later on, because even though their voices were similar and the tones in their voices, DMX was a very aggressive rapper, where Ja Rule then switched his style up to go a little bit more R&B. And DMX, but early Ja Rule, Holla Holla and all of that sounded a lot like DMX because of his voice and then the style. That's why then, of course, there their rift, where he ended up part of that on that record, dissing Ja Rule as well. But that had more to do with his vocal tones and so forth, and him, DMX feeling like Ja Rule sounded like him. Now I know today for a lot of you younger fans might not understand that someone sounding like someone is a problem. But back then, biting and being original and originality was a huge part in hip hop. If you felt like you were derivative of anybody else, it was a problem. Nowadays, if you don't sound like everything out, it's a problem. So you might not understand that. But back then, originality, creativity, and being the first of your kind was of great importance. Hence, that's where the DMX issue comes in.
Okay. So that's now 2003, 2004. That's when basically, and in 2003, Charo comes back with the album. I think it's called The Last Temptation. If I can't remember.
Blood in My Eye.
Blood in My Eye.
That's
the album. Yeah, that's the album.
That's the album. Yeah.
The song or is the album?
That's the album.
That's the album.
Yeah.
Blood in My Eye. Yeah. In there.
I personally feel like if he had blood in his eye, he should have went to the doctor. I'm just being honest.
Yeah. So that's when Charo started went back from to what he started with.
He changed his style up.
No, he never changed his style.
He left the R&B.
He left the R&B out. He
went more
He
into
went
the
more
hard.
to what early Ja Rule sounded like.
Yeah,
A little bit
that's
more
what I mean,
aggression, what
yeah.
was working at the time. Like we spoke about this earlier, the aggressive type of records are working at the time. And for him, it felt like a culture shock, especially to his fans, because of the type of music he was making. And that switch was, he was moving into other people's fan bases that it didn't make sense at that point.
Yeah. So he started with Vinny Vinny Vici, which was rough and aggressive, and then he went to
Softer.
so what's it called, that Pain Is Love, and then that was it 336 Rule 336 was a bit softer, was more R&B-ish, right? And then when 50's album came out in 2003, and then what the dusting and everything, what the dusting, Ja came up with us with the album Blood in My Eye, which went back to where he initially started, but because a lot of people got used to the two middle albums, so that's where
You can say that's when his quote unquote fall off started happening,
Yeah.
because that record was not as successful
is
as everything that had come out prior to that from him. So you could look at that's when the downfall started happening. Now 50's on the rise at this point and Ja is on the decline, but that you can attribute to many different things.
yeah, and then on 50's Get Rich or Die Trying, I think this is where the killer blow hit on the dust track called Backdown.
Mm-hmm.
The Dr. Dre produced beat, brilliant. Even if that is not a dust song, I love that record.
Yeah, so that's what for me and for everybody, I think Backdown was the
I think
ending
on
punch,
our
the knockout
first
punch.
episode when we started speaking about beefs and battles, they ran through us a question that took us 17 hours to answer about what's a top 5 or top 10 diss tracks. I think Backdown was in mine. I could be mistaken. If you all didn't listen to it,
Yeah.
go check it out. And
You
tell
too,
me.
Shiki.
Yes.
Go check it
I
out.
should go check it out.
Check it out
as
again.
well. And then let me know what was in my top 5.
And just to make Shiki aware, you mentioned it that time. It wasn't in chronological order. Okay. Anyway, then in 2007, Cha accused 50 of saying he's copying his style, because remember at that time when 50 started coming out, he said Cha is doing R&B tracks and everything, but 50 also.
To that point,
Yeah.
that was a completely fair point.
Yeah.
50 attacked Ja Rule for being melodic, for having R&B sounding records, for doing somewhat duets with R&B artists,
Yeah.
and creating a specific sound, which was working at the time. 50 then comes out. Here's one of the hardest, most aggressive albums ever. But at the same time, here's the type of records that he was dissing Ja Rule for having. If you listen to 21 Questions, amazing. Smile, there's a few joints of 50s that do sound a lot like what Ja Rule was doing. So what he attacked him for, he thereafter started making the same thing.
On Get Rich or Die Trying, that way was hard, right? 21 Questions, right? On the Massacre, that's when you got the word on the Massacre. That's where he started having more R&B, like the candy shops,
Besides of the R&B sound, right, just the melodic feel to the hooks and the type of music he was making, that's what he attacked Ja Rule for, and then did it. Now to that very point, if you listen to music over the last 10 or 12 years, right, is extremely, people that are quote unquote rappers or hip hop artists make extremely melodic music that borderline it's R&B. They sing songy rap, the way they making the actual music can fall under R&B category. Now I think Ja Rule as an artist, as well as his discography, gets overlooked for being a pioneer within the style. Because he did it before all of these people. And today that is the sound that is winning, that is in the forefront. Extremely melodic, extremely R&B sounding type of music. The Drakes of the world and all these other artists come from fruit of Ja Rule's tree, whether we like to admit it or not. Now I know you are going to be biased. But he's one of the pioneers of that style. Now,
No,
granted,
no doubt
there is artists that have made that type of music, but he was a successful one at it, and he consistently put out that type of music. So the style that you hear for when I say now, I'm referring to the last 10, 12 years around him, comes from what Ja Rule did. Someone else who will never get credit for it, and I don't think we'll ever get an opportunity to actually mention them, because in terms of music, they haven't done enough popularly. They haven't been as popular as much in music, but now in the media space and podcasting, you can speak about them. I'm just using this opportunity to bring this up. Again, now, in the last 10 or 12 years, what do you hear in music comes from someone else that people will disagree with me. But Joe Budden is a forefather of a lot of the music style you hear today. With the high level of introspection, the putting your life on the forefront, wearing your heart on your sleeve, speaking about depression and drug use. Tell me that's not a big part of the content you hear in the music recently.
Yeah, keep it.
And he's one of the forefathers of that style as well. So what you hear today is a combination of Ja Rule and Joe Budden.
Yeah. And there is a beef between 50 and Joe Budden.
That wasn't even a big deal. It was more Lloyd Banks and Joe Budden and Game and Joe Budden.
Yeah. So we'll get to that beef later on, right? But right now, who do you think won the beef between? It's still not finished. What I'm asking now, who do you think won the battle?
Are we going battle and war again? Yeah?
No, who won the battle?
Listen, I said I'm gonna be objective. But that's a stupid question. 51 at all fronts. One battle, one war, one everything.
Right. In 2013, Ja Rule himself says 51 the beef.
That's undeniable.
Right?
If again, going back to the KRS-One thing, remember in the KRS-One episode I stated that this was one of the first times you heard an unestablished or not as popular artist going at the biggest artist in the game, and not only taking him out but taking his spot. And I said this has happened very few times in hip-hop after that. This is one of the very few times I'm referring to. 50 was an unknown underground mixtape artist. Ja Rule was the biggest thing in the world. Not only had success in hip-hop and rap, he was a top 40 artist, a commercially sounding artist playing on pop stations, and 50 came and took his spot, whether we like to admit it or not.
Right. Then in 20 the battles, although he admits
defeat,
that he admits defeat, right? There's still a battle between, there's still a beefing, right? Now in 2018, right? Okay, let's do 2015, right? Since we did the Drake and Meek Mill beef last week, right? They both, although they beefing, they both agreed. Someone mentioned to them, both of them, they said Drake and Meek Mill's they compared Drake and Meek Mill's beef with 50 and Ja, and both of them said,
that makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make no sense. Yeah, because 50 and Ja's beef was way worse.
In terms of that, if you think about it, the most publicized, the most media, the most media coverage, the beefs that people speak about the most is probably Tupac and Biggie, and then secondary is 50 Cent versus Ja Rule. That's why you spoke about the 2013, they still beefing, in 2018 or whatever. Their situation is deeper than just music. There is actual personal issues and people that were behind the scenes that were involved. So this thing is deeper than rap. So it's a situation where people have gotten injured, people have lost their lives and so forth. So there's a type of situation that would never go away. It's not just about what you hear on wax and in music. Even though 50 Cent is one of the funniest people around here.
Right.
Makes this thing entertaining in 2022.
Yeah, right. So then in 2018, like we said, the beef is not over. Ja Rule and 50, the Ja Rule start goes on Twitter and starts firing off at 50. And what 50 does, you said it now, post funny memes, right?
and bought out the front row seats of
I
his
was,
concert.
I was,
to
I
empty.
was, 200
I was
tickets in his Vegas
I
show.
was coming to that in 2018 again. 50 is petty. He takes Charo as a concert.
Mm.
He buys 200 front row tickets.
Yeah, if he was a rapper now, his name would be
Just-
Petty Whip.
But they say what the price of inflation is now, 50 cents changed his name to 85 cents.
It should be a dollar or rand by now. Inflation is ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, they still going on with their beef. Anything else you want to mention?
Now, again, when I started this, I said I am going to look at this objectively. Even though it is obvious that 50 Wonders Jar fell off completely hard after that, right? We already spoke about Fif taking some of his style after that. Well, not his style, but using things that he criticized him for doing
Yeah.
it himself. But if you look at this realistically, even though 51 took his spot, their runs were somewhat the same amount of time. You had 99 to like 02, which are rules run.
Four,
on
yeah.
top of the game.
No,
4 years.
02, yeah.
Right?
Oh, four.
You
Are
had
giving
50
his
from
credit?
03.
His credit?
You had 50 from 03 to like 06, 07, and then Kanye and Wayne came and took over. So their runs were a similar amount of time, right?
Yeah.
In that time, you had 50 with Get Rich or Die Trying and The Massacre, that were huge albums, but 50's impact during that time, it cannot be compared to what Ja Rule did, because he went Diamond, he had the G-Unit album in between, he appeared on all his artist things, so the slew of music and the sheer impact of his period of time that he was on top of the
Was
game
more.
cannot be compared. There is no, I've never seen, I don't think, even though Drake's run has been for so long, that for that short period of time, that impact cannot be matched. I don't think anyone can compare to that. But we just look at the period of time, their runs were a similar amount of time, right?
Runs similar amount of time. Right?
Secondly, you've always heard Ja Rule say it wasn't 50 that took him out, it was a combination of things. Now granted, I can agree if you look at it from that side. He was going at 50 Cent, biggest artist in the game. DMX, one of the biggest artists in the game for a long time. Busta Rhymes has been consistently an important figure in hip-hop since the early 90s. Dr. Dre is Dr. Dre, I don't have to explain
Yeah.
anything. Eminem, one of the biggest artist since he has came out till probably today. The highest selling artist of all time. They had a federal case against Murder Inc.
Yeah.
Def Jam had dropped him. So there was a slew of things that were happening while he was going through it with 50 Cent. So if you look at it from his perspective, and I'm looking at it objectively, it's understandable why he was unable to come back from that. And
But
then
he
if
came
you
with the
look,
tracks.
he tried to, it was a
That
bit
level-
late. Like you took Mix's part last week, you took Drake's part, and you said it was too late. It was too late when he had come with the diss tracks, right? On top of
Not
that, when he had a record that was somewhat working and coming back on the New York joint
Yeah.
with Fat Joe and Jadakiss.
Yeah.
50 Cent was so big at that point in time that anybody that stood next to him, he attacked him.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Fat Joe and Jadakiss were stalwarts within hip hop and within the culture, especially within New York hip hop. So it didn't deter them from working with him. But anybody else, it deterred other people from working with him because 50 Cent was such a storm to weather at that point in time. And if you stood next to Ja Rule, he was going to attack you.
Okay.
So that deterred other people from working with him as well. So you can look at it from Ja Rule's perspective and state that it is understandable that he wasn't able to come back from that situation.
Okay.
On the flip side of that coin, till today, whether we like it or not, and people look at Ja Rule as he fell off, how much music of his still gets played?
Yeah, it still gets played.
No matter where you go, his music still gets played from that period of time. Now, granted, 50s does as well, but I'm just speaking about Ja Rule because a lot of people look like he fell off. His music still gets played to a high level in a club, no matter where you go, and he's made timeless, great records and influenced the style of today, whether we like to believe it or not. Like I said, I'm looking at it objectively.
Right. So you said what's it called? Ja Rule took long to respond. I wouldn't say because say that, right? It's a different thing between last week's one and this week's one because Ja Rule comes out with Loose Change 2-3 days
This
after.
was, but this was after. This was, Loose Change comes out before 50 blows up. This is after 50 blows up.
No,
It takes a long time
no.
to respond with clapback.
But in between the clapback and everything, he came up with Loose Change. Then there was another freestyle. Then
He was taking shots here and there, but the full blown diss track.
Then they were responding to us back and forth, and it was between 2 or 3 days. Last week you even mentioned it when Meek said I was on tour, right? Ja Rule has to put it fairly. He was also kind of busy, but he managed to come back with freestyles, come back with this, come back. He came back, so it's not like he didn't come back.
Listen, I'm just
Yeah.
playing devil's advocate at this point.
Right.
They were under federal investigation and they won the case.
Understand?
Because of the same things that, remember I was speaking about earlier, there's things in the background and people in the background of this
Yeah.
beef that made it an actual street and a real situation. The people that Murder Inc. were involved with 58 issues with, and they were under federal investigation. And they were in indictment. So Ja Rule could not respond at that point in time. Hence it took long to come with a proper full-blown diss record. Like on New York, the take off your cellular chain, put back on your wire, all of those lines were aimed at 50, but a full-blown diss record, it took some time to come with.
Okay, but anyway, 50 won the battle and he won the war.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm not disagreeing. Like I said, I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm looking at this objectively, but I'm not disagreeing with it. I don't think anyone would disagree with it.
But the thing is, like, you gotta
Because
give
I've
Ja
give
Rule his
credit.
props
I've
to
never
his-
seen anyone fall off that hard. Nobody. Like Cannabis, when LL destroyed him and he disappeared, well, even though I feel like if you go record for record, Cannabis won that. But Cannabis was an unestablished, unknown artist that never actually popped off.
Yeah.
Ja Rule was a huge artist, and for him to actually go in, to have the trajectory that his career had musically after that, whatever he's doing outside of that, I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
Besides that Fire Festival thing, if you saw that
No,
on
the
Netflix,
Fire Festival.
that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
No,
Um,
50 even mocked him.
yeah, no, he's obviously everybody mocked him.
Yeah.
But apart from that, like his music trajectory, his career never ever was able to reach anywhere close to the heights he did before that. So for someone to actually drop off from that level to that low, because even Nelly was like going diamond and things prior to 50 blowing up. We're talking about late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And even though his career never took off the same way, and he also was a melodic style rapper,
Yeah.
but he's able to put out a record that does something every now and then.
Yeah.
50 is able to come with a record with Chris Brown and things even after his run that does something. Ja, I feel like the only one, if he puts out the album, nobody cares.
Yeah, I think-
Nobody
I
cares.
think he even mentioned it. He mentioned it himself. He said his mistake. He would have just went at 50. His mistake was going against
Everybody.
everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think for him success took a little bit. It took him too much, and that's why he went against everybody. Whereas he would have just went if it was just 50 and
Well, also, so again, I'm going to play devil's advocate from the other side this time. He said he went at everybody and wasn't able to survive it.
Mm.
50 went at him, the entire Murder Inc.
Yeah.
Fat Joe, huge person at that time. Jadakiss in the Locks,
Yeah.
right?
Cameron.
Jay-Z, Nas,
Cameron, yeah. Joe
Who else?
Biden.
Joe Biden wasn't a factor musically that time, let's be realistic. Game was huge after he fell off him. Who else did he go with? The people on the south, Houston, I don't rap a lot. Jay Prince and him, that entire team. Scarface ended up on a diss record against him. Scarface, lyrical giant, hip hop pioneer, stalwart. Yes, who else? Everybody. If your name was somewhere there, he would have taken a shot at you. Fab. Everybody was getting shots from 50, and he managed to survive that.
Yeah. I give credit to Charles because Charles was the only
Mhm.
was the only artist to actually lay a punch on 50, right? That's one.
You're talking from a physical standpoint.
Physical
That's
standpoint, right?
irrelevant.
Yeah, but 50, right? Giving me keep a team, right? Being shot and still coming back and that's that is really
Again,
Oh.
this is you're talking about physical things.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the actual musicality standpoint of things. Otherwise, we could have delved
Yeah.
deeper into the beef from an actual personal standpoint.
okay. Let us that is the beef with 50 and Charo.
Next, we're gonna move on to is our focused artist of the week, which is KB, also known by his government name as Kevin Elijah Burgess. Okay, so KB is an American Christian hip hop artist and a music executive from St. Petersburg, Florida. He is a leader of the group, the hip hop group HGA, and he also signed a contract with Reach Records in 2010. So a little bit on the history of him. After like high school, KB enrolled in a Bible college and befriended a group of Christian rappers, and together they formed the hip hop group HGA, which is short for His Glory Alone. And then from there as well, he was met artists such as Lecrae, which signed him to his label Reach Records. So he's also had a lot of albums. He's released 4 albums. And then he's, at the moment, I would say he's like in the top maybe 3 of Christian rappers at the moment. Ari, what do you say on that?
Don't ask Ari
I
about
would
top
say-
anything because he won't let you have your top spots. So just don't ask Ari. If
Okay.
you feel like he's in the top 3, have him in the top 3 because don't ask Ari.
I
because
would
it's
say-
gonna have an unnecessary conversation.
I would say
and
it's-
we won't be
I-
able to
I-
put him anywhere.
Yeah, I would say he's in top 10.
You see, Ari won't even let you have your 3.
Not even a 5.
I know he's in the top 10.
He's
But
one
I
of the
mean, yeah.
biggest artists
Yeah,
at the
biggest,
moment.
yeah, biggest. But we're talking about rapping.
I haven't heard a single record for me is number 1, Ari.
No, no
number
me,
one.
for me, okay, I'm gonna go on. Let's rather continue. But he is in the top 10.
Number 1.
Top 10. Number 1. I beg to differ. But anyway.
Ari, you can't put 50 Cent and Eminem in the top
No.
10 of hip hop, Christian hip hop.
No,
okay?
I'm not. I'm talking about Lecrae. I'm talking about NF. I'm talking about who else? Flame. There's Trip Lee. There's Tadasha or something like that. Yeah.
I don't care what you say. For me, he's number 1.
All right.
Haven't heard a single record, but he's number 1.
So Shiki, that's some songs you've heard by KB. Is he still your number 1?
Yes, still number 1, Ari.
They just like to poke fun at me, so it's fine. It's fine.
So
But they must know. Don't worry. I'm very
Anyway,
aware.
tell them what you're excited about.
I'm excited about now. They know. It's this past week in hip hop history. Yeah.
Stop
Jul-
adding alphabets. Now I must put a P in the alphabet.
Okay, so this week in hip hop history.
Mhm.
Just for you, so you can start spelling. Okay. July 9th, 1991, Ghetto Boys released their 4th album, We Can't Be Stopped.
Just to put it in reference, I spoke about 50 Scarface, Houston Rap-A-Lot Records earlier. Ghetto Boys is the group that Scarface come from, and Ghetto Boys was on Rap-A-Lot Records.
Okay. And June 1997, Timbaland and Magoo released their debut single, Up Jumps the Boogie.
What's your surname, Ari? What's your surname?
My surname is Magoo.
So you were on this
Timbaland and
album.
Ari dropped
So
a
Timbaland
and Magoo. Yeah, that this guy stole my surname.
No, you were on this album. You know you're old enough to have been on this album.
No. Magoo is a different. It's his stage name.
He's your cousin.
He's your cousin.
He's my cousin from the States, yeah. Okay, anyway. June 11, 1974, Lil Kim was born.
Okay, for you young people that are fans of Nicki Minaj, what's all these
Megan
other
Thee
girls that all
Stallion.
rap the same and say the
Megan
same
Thee
stuff and
Stallion,
be twerking and all that? Megan
Cardi
Thee
B.
Stallion, Cardi B. Okay, Cardi B don't write, but all of these people that have this hyper-sexualized type of music,
Started.
Lil Kim is their grandmother.
The Queen
She
Bee.
started that style. Nicki Minaj, all of these people are fruit of her tree. She was the best at the start. So go back and check out Lil Kim and see where all of these people come from. It is her style that they carried on.
Okay. And in July 12, 2005, Grand Hustle Records released a soundtrack of the film Hustle and Flow.
First of all, I love that movie, Hustle and Flow.
Yeah.
You know it's
Yeah,
hard
no,
out
yeah,
here for a pimp.
Yeah.
When you're trying to get this money for the rent,
Now there's a
for the Cadillac and gas money spent.
okay.
Will cause a whole jumping ship. I had to I couldn't start the chorus and not finish it. I had to.
There's a parody to that one. It's to hard down walking with a limp. Okay, but anyway, July 13th, 2004, The Roots released their 6th studio album, The Tipping Point.
The Roots, Black Thought.
Black Thought, Questlove, yeah. July 13th, 1971, MF Doom was born.
And he recently passed away, I think last year, isn't it?
Yeah, rest in peace.
MF Doom performed with a mask, so he would sometimes have 2 shows at the same time, you know that?
Yeah.
He would have someone else performing as him elsewhere, while he's performing someone else
Yeah.
because he performed with a mask, no one knew what he looked like.
Yeah.
I would have done that too.
Double the money.
Mhm.
Too Short released his 4th studio album, Shorty the Pump, in July 1992.
Ari, you never tell us you'll release your album.
No, but Too Short is part of the Snoop, Ice Cube,
Mount
Too
Westmore.
Short, and E40, a group called Mount Westmore. They recently released an album. I don't know where you're gonna find it because they're doing it with this NFT stuff. But they recently came with an album.
July 1998, the Beastie Boys released their 5th album, Hello Nasty.
You know what's the crazy part about it? Beastie Boys is one of the highest selling hip hop groups or hip hop whatever people of all time. But if you ask anybody about the Beastie Boys, they don't know who they are.
Ridiculous. July 1997, Missy Elliott releases her debut album, Super Duper Fly.
What, yeah?
97. July.
I don't think I have to say anything about Missy Elliott. Videos. Missy Elliott and Busta Rhymes probably got the best videos.
Yeah.
Entertaining, yeah.
So if they do a versus, they've been speaking about them doing a versus. I got to use their videos as well.
Yeah. Because their videos are very highly creative. Also, Missy Elliott with Timbaland, producing wise. Yeah.
Now what about Magoo? What about Magoo?
Magoo is there. And he's here in South Africa also.
Is that all you have for TWI?
And that was this week in hip hop history.
I guarantee you more stuff happened this week in hip hop history, but we had to cut Ari short because he gets too excited for the segment.
Yeah. Unfortunately, but anyway.
So that was the show, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. I'm D-Money. We've got Harry Styles, also known as Harry Styles.
No.
Also known as Magoo and Timbaland.
No, do not say Harry Styles because Harry Styles is from One Direction. I tell you it all
If
the
you're
time.
from Durban, you don't pronounce the H.
No,
You
I'm
hear
not
them
from-
say
I am not-
so maybe you hear
No,
Styles
I
without
am.
the H.
I am not from Durban. I am from Joburg. I take.
You're the Harry Styles from Joburg.
I know. Please.
I would like to
D-Money.
apologize to our listeners from Durban. We have no issue with you.
Yeah.
We don't want to start no beef with
Yeah.
Harry Styles.
What Harry Styles? Because my cousins from Durban will come for you. Right?
Anyway, the opposite of welcome. Goodbye. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. On the turntable with Shiki, Ari Styles, and D-Money on Active FM, where radio has never been better. We're going to leave you with a verse and a song before we leave.
So verse today comes from 1 Chronicles 16 verse 11. Look to the Lord and his strength, seek his face always.